Once upon a time, there was a man and his wife that had wanted a baby for so long, but had never had one. One day, the wife gave her husband the awesome news that they had waited so long for. They were going to have a baby. They lived in a house overlooking a big garden full of fresh vegetables and flowers. Sadly, the garden was protected by a high wall with barbed wire on the top. The mighty witch who lived there wanted no one in her garden. Everyone was very scared of the mighty witch. One day, the wife was so hungry for the fresh radishes. She saw them growing in the witch's garden, but she knew she could not have them. Although she really, really wanted them, she thought she might die if she did not have them. Her husband worried so much about her. She told him, "I think I will die unless I can have some of those radishes that grow in the witch's garden." Her husband waited for nightfall so he could climb over the wall to get her some of the witch's radishes. He got her some and climbed back over. She made a big radish salad, and it made her feel so much better. But she knew she wanted more radishes. So her husband snuck over the wall at night to pick more radishes. As he was climbing back over the wall, the witch was standing right below him. "How dare you steal my radishes?" said the witch. "My wife thought she would die if I did not get them for her. I am very sorry." "If this is true," said the witch, "you can have all the radishes you want, on one condition. You must promise to give me your child to raise as my own." The man was so scared he agreed to whatever she said just to get away. When the beautiful child was born, the witch came and took her away, just as she had threatened. She named her Rapunzel, which means radish. Rapunzel grew more and more beautiful every day, and on her 12th birthday, the witch locked her up in a high tower deep in the woods. The tower had no stairs, no door, only a small window. Rapunzel had beautiful long hair that had never been cut, and when the witch wanted to go up to see her, she would cry, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The witch would climb up her hair to see her. This went on for years. One day, a prince was riding by the tower and heard Rapunzel singing. He looked at the tower but had no idea how to get in, so he left. But he came by the next day and saw the witch crying, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And he saw the beautiful girl who sang, let down her hair for the witch to climb up to see her. The prince returned at dusk and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Rapunzel could not believe it when the young prince appeared, and it was not the witch. They fell in love at first sight. They made a plan for Rapunzel to escape. The witch found this out and cut off Rapunzel's hair and hid her away far from the tower. That night, the witch waited for the prince. He cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." The witch threw out Rapunzel's hair, and he climbed up. To his surprise, it was the witch, not Rapunzel. The witch cursed him. "You will never see again." And with that, he was blind. For some time he wandered the forest, hoping to hear Rapunzel singing again. And then, one day, he heard her singing. He followed her voice and found her. They hugged and Rapunzel cried, so happy to see him again. One of her tears fell on his face, and a miracle happened. he could see again. "Oh, I am so happy to see you again," said the prince. And then another miracle happened. Rapunzel's beautiful hair grew back, as long and shiny as it had been. The prince took Rapunzel to his kingdom far away from the witch, where they lived happily ever after. A long time ago, a woodcutter lived on the edge of a large forest, with his 2 children, a girl named Gretel and his son named Hansel, and his wife, who was the children's stepmother. They were very poor, despite all the woodcutter's hard work. One year there was a terrible famine, and there was not enough food for the whole family. One night, the stepmother told the woodcutter they must take Hansel and Gretel deep into the forest and leave them there. Hansel overheard them talking. He told Gretel the terrible plan. Then Hansel had a great idea. He would fill his pockets with white pebbles to leave a path back to the house when this happened. The next morning, the stepmother said they all had to go into the woods to gather firewood. As they walked deeper and deeper into the woods, Hansel dropped his white pebbles to mark the path back to their house. The next day, Hansel and Gretel returned back to the house. Their stepmother was very angry. She told the woodcutter to take them deeper into the woods. This time, Hansel marked their path with breadcrumbs from his pocket so they could find their way home. In the morning, there were no breadcrumbs. The woodland animals had eaten them all. Hansel and Gretel began to walk through the forest, and suddenly, they could not believe their eyes. They found the most amazing house, made of gingerbread, with a roof of icing and windows made of sugar. They were so hungry, they broke off a piece of the house to eat. Then they heard a voice. "Nibble, nibble like a mouse. Who's that nibbling at my house?" The door opened, and an old woman leaning on a cane frightened Hansel and Gretel. The woman then smiled and invited Hansel and Gretel into her house for a delicious dinner of pancakes and apples. After dinner, she said they could stay for the night, and she made up the beds for them, as sweet and kind as any grandmother. The children had no idea the old woman was really a wicked witch. Before Hansel and Gretel awoke the next morning, the wicked witch carried Hansel to a cage she had built and locked him inside. "Now I can fatten you up so I can eat you." The witch made Gretel cook, so Hansel would grow plump. The children cried and begged to be set free, but the wicked witch just laughed at them. Every day the wicked witch, who could not see very well, wanted to feel Hansel's fingers through the bars of the cage, so she could feel how plump he was getting, plump enough to eat. But Hansel cleverly only gave her an old bone to feel. She thought he was always much too thin for her to eat. Weeks went by, and the witch was becoming impatient, as Hansel didn't seem to be growing any fatter. One morning, the witch ordered Gretel to make a fire in the oven. After a while, the witch said to Gretel, "Climb up into the oven to see if the fire is ready." Gretel asked, "But how can I get into the oven to see?" The witch was impatient and climbed up herself to show Gretel how to look at the fire. Quick as a wink, Gretel shoved the old witch into the oven. Then she banged the door shut. Gretel ran over to free Hansel from the cage. They now had nothing to be afraid of. They explored the witch's house and found jewels and gold coins in every corner. Hansel and Gretel filled their pockets with all the riches and gold coins, and they set out to find their way home. They walked for a long time and finally came to the edge of a big lake. "How can we ever cross without a bridge or a boat?" said Hansel. "Here comes a swan," said Gretel. "I will ask her to help us." The beautiful swan agreed to carry them across the lake. Once they were on the other side, they recognized the forest edge, and they began to run down the path towards home. When the woodcutter saw them running towards him, he cried tears of joy for seeing his children. He did not have a moment of peace since he had left them in the forest. His wife had died while they were gone. The children emptied their pockets of all the gold, rubies, and diamonds. The father could not believe his eyes. The woodcutter, Hansel, and Gretel all lived happily ever after, with the help of the witch's gold and treasures. Once upon a time, in a faraway land, a lovely princess was born. The king and queen named their daughter Aurora. They invited everyone in the kingdom to the palace to celebrate her birth. Everyone except for the evil fairy Maleficent. The wicked fairy was so mad about not being invited that she snuck in anyway, in a flash of lightning, and she put a curse on beautiful Princess Aurora. Before the sun sets on her 16th birthday, she will prick her finger on a spinning wheel and die. Then, Maleficent, in a flash of thunder, disappeared. Luckily, 3 good fairies were at the party, and they softened the curse with a prophecy that said, "If this will happen, you will only sleep, not die. Your sleep will be ended when your true love gives you a kiss." The 3 fairies disguised themselves as peasant women and agreed to raise Aurora in the woods to keep her identity a secret until the night of her 16th birthday. The years passed and Princess Aurora grew into a lovely girl. She only knew the 3 women as her aunts, not as fairies, and they called her Briar Rose. The evil fairy Maleficent was always looking for her, but never could find her. Briar Rose always dreamed of meeting a handsome young man and falling in love. Then, on the day of her 16th birthday, a prince was riding through the woods. The prince heard Briar Rose singing. He asked her to dance, and before they knew it, they had fallen in love. Briar Rose had no idea he was a prince from a nearby kingdom, and the prince had no idea that she was really a princess. The 3 aunts were busy baking Briar Rose's 16th birthday cake. Briar Rose returned to the cottage and told her aunts about the stranger she had met and danced with. The aunts told Briar Rose her real name was Princess Aurora, and she would be returning to the castle that evening. The 3 fairies brought Princess Aurora home to her eagerly awaiting family. Everyone thought the princess had escaped Maleficent's evil curse. But no one knew Maleficent was hiding upstairs. As soon as Maleficent saw Aurora alone, she put her in a trance and led her into a room with a gleaming spinning wheel. "Touch the spindle, touch it," said Maleficent. Princess Aurora obeyed. She pricked her finger and fell to the floor. The 3 fairies found the sleeping princess and were heartbroken. They must now find the handsome stranger the princess had met in the woods. The fairies found the prince, and when he heard the news, he raced towards Princess Aurora's castle. Maleficent was waiting to stop the prince, but she was no match for the prince, and he made his way to the peaceful, beautiful, sleeping Princess Aurora. He knelt by her side and gently kissed her. Slowly, Princess Aurora opened her eyes. She smiled when she saw the face of the handsome stranger from the forest. He was her true love. Aurora sat up and took his hand. The prince asked Aurora to be his bride. "Yes, of course," replied Princess Aurora. They would live in his grand castle, close to her parents and her fairy aunts. Princess Aurora and the prince lived happily ever after. A long, long time ago, beyond the Great Wall of China, a tiny dragon named Mushu left his home in search of a young girl named Mulan. Mulan had cut her hair and dressed as a man to take her place in the war against the fierce warrior Huns. Mushu the dragon was supposed to guard and protect Mulan. "Walk like a man, legs apart," advised Mushu as she entered camp. "Punch the guys in the arm, they seem to like that. Call them nicknames and spit a lot." Every time Mulan followed Mushu's advice, Mulan caused more trouble. Soon all the new recruits were fighting. The camp was in total chaos. When Captain Chang arrived, Captain Chang asked Mulan her name. As Mulan tried to disguise her voice as a man, she told Captain Chang her name was Ping. Captain Chang was a strong and skillful leader. Mulan felt inadequate, but she worked hard and used her mind to finally win Captain Chang's respect. All of the soldiers admired Ping's determination and hard work. She inspired them. Not even her best friends knew that Ping was a woman. One day, Captain Chang led his troops to join the Imperial Army. Mulan and her friends sang songs, but sadly, their good cheer ended when they realized the army and their village were in ruins. Captain Chang was extremely upset when he realized his father, the general, had been killed in the battle. Mulan tried to comfort Captain Chang, but the Huns returned. Mulan proved to be a great and courageous soldier. Mulan, with Mushu's help, caused a huge avalanche that buried the enemies. Even though Mulan was wounded in the battle, she was still able to jump on her horse and rescue Captain Chang from the oncoming snow. As Mulan's soldier friends helped Mulan and Captain Chang back to safety, Captain Chang awoke and looked at Mulan with admiration. "From now on, you have my trust," he said, and he thanked her. Mulan's smile soon turned to pain, and as her wound was treated, everyone learned the truth about Ping. They all found out Ping was a woman. At this time in China, Mulan's deception was punishable by death. But Captain Chang spared her. "A life for a life," Captain Chang declared. Feeling rejected, Mulan watched as the troops marched away, leaving her alone with Mushu. With a sad, heavy heart, Mulan confided in her friend Mushu that she just wanted to do things right, so that when she looked in the mirror, she would see someone worthwhile. "But," Mulan said, "I was wrong. I see nothing." Mushu tried to make Mulan feel better, and confessed he had set out to make Mulan a hero so he could regain his position as guardian. "At least you risked your life to help people you love. I risked your life to help myself," said Mushu. Mulan hugged the little dragon. How could she be mad at such a friend? This quiet moment was shattered when Mulan realized that a few of the Huns had survived. She raced toward the imperial city to warn Captain Chang. Mulan got there just moments too late, as the emperor had already been taken as a prisoner. Mulan's soldier friends tried so hard to break down the palace door, but without any success. Mulan said she had an idea. Mulan dressed her soldier friends as women The Huns had no idea they were soldiers, and the soldiers got in and rescued the emperor. But Shan Yu, the Hun leader, fiercely attacked Captain Shang. To protect the captain, Mulan revealed herself to Shan Yu as the soldier who defeated him at the mountain. Shan Yu began to chase Mulan, but the dragon and Mulan had a plan, and they led him to the roof of the palace. Just when he reached the top, Mulan grabbed his sword and pinned his cloak to the roof. Mushu shot a rocket towards him, and Shan Yu disappeared in a blast of fireworks. Mulan was so happy as she realized she was special just as herself. She returned home and presented Shan Yu's sword to her father. He was so grateful. Captain Shang followed Mulan home as he realized his feelings for her had grown. Mulan was so much more than a great fighter. Finally, her heart was full. And Mushu, the little dragon, regained his guardianship, and they all lived happily ever after.